Hello everyone, it's Meg. Welcome to another Minecraft time-lapse. I'm actually super excited to show this one to you. This is something that I've been working on for the past several weeks. Not that it really took me that long to build it, I just kind of was working on it slowly. All that to say, I wish I had gotten it done sooner, but it's done now and I hope you enjoy this time-lapse. This was my first attempt ever at a steampunk build of any kind, and I ended up choosing a Pegasus to do because I've been wanting to do a Pegasus, so I figured I might as well make it a steampunk Pegasus. But that is a lot to say, steampunk Pegasus, so instead I just call it a Mechasus, short for a mechanical Pegasus. Anyway, the very first step I did to do this build was to actually create the basic shape of the horse itself. And I was just doing my normal method, using brushes to kind of create the shapes. The nice thing about this is I didn't have to worry about getting the muscles and stuff exact because this is really just a placeholder to help me get the size right. So once I had a basic rough shape done, then I could just go in and add in all of the gears or mechanisms that I wanted to. I would have to say the hardest part was trying to make it all kind of make sense. Of course, I know it's like a fantasy build, so it's not going to be realistic necessarily, but I wanted to do my best to make it as realistic as possible. Needless to say, I think I gave up on making it realistic about halfway through. It was just too complicated. But I think it looks pretty cool regardless. And that's really all that matters here, just to make something that looks cool. While most of this idea originated from my head, I did use some photos of inspiration, which really gave me the idea to add this rib cage, which I think is a really neat idea. Almost like a framework to kind of hold everything in place, but also has some style to it and kind of makes sense. Working on the legs was probably one of the more challenging things because I wanted to make sure the bars that I used for each leg length was the same. So it was looking kind of funny to me getting those angles right. Like one looked longer than the other even though I knew for sure it wasn't. I just kind of had to overcome that mentality in my head. For the neck and other kinds of organic shapes around, I just did a lot of what looks kind of like armor plating. Basically large sheets of metal, some of them were bent in just very specific ways to help get the shape of the actual horse. I didn't want the whole thing covered, but I did want some of it covered, just so you could still have that shape of the horse and still see all the gears inside it. So a lot of it was done by hand, like the metal casings and stuff. And of course the gears are pretty simple, just creating a cylinder, rotating it, and pasting it in. But that's pretty much most of what I did for this entire build. Most of the work I either did by hand or used the loft tool or a cylinder. That's basically all I used. Speaking of the loft tool, if you're interested in learning how to use that or what it is, I do have a video about that. I guess I'll link to that somewhere for you. But once we finish the actual body of the horse, now it's time to add the wings. This took a bit of experimenting because I wasn't sure what I wanted. I think I built it at least 3 or 4 times before I was finally happy with it. Actually, that last one was almost exactly how it ended up. I just did it a little bit differently where I rotated each of the blades individually. And I think it turned out better this way. Alright, after messing with those wings quite long enough, I think it's time to move on to the last piece we haven't yet figured out, and that's the tail. And I didn't really want to make it super complicated. I ended up just using metal platings again, kind of in the shape of a horse's tail. There's probably a better way I could have done it, but this was the easiest way, and it doesn't look terrible. And I really just wanted to get into coloring, which is what I did next. I actually went over the entire build very slowly and very carefully. I did most of the coloring just using brushes, using a base color first and then using a lighten brush to help add the highlights, especially for all those metal pieces. But even with using brushes to help with the shading, I did end up going over the whole thing by hand anyway and touched it up and cleaned it up to where I was happy with it. I did try to stay consistent too throughout the build, using the same colors for different pieces. For example, all of the gears were a rusty orange, as if they had been used quite a bit, and all the metal plating was just a shiny, kind of worn gray. Back to these troublesome wings. Again, I was struggling with these, and I recolored them probably 5 or 6 times before I was happy with it. I actually didn't record all of it because I had tried it so many times, but basically what I was trying to accomplish was the best way to make a shiny black metal, which I don't think I accomplished it 100% to where it looks what I wanted it to look like. In the end, it did look fine. I was just really struggling with it there for a while. And there's one more final touch to add to this, and that's just little puffs of steam coming out the backs of this horse's legs. I just wanted to add some kind of particles to this, and since it's steampunk and a steam-operated horse, why not add steam? I mean, that's kind of a given, right? Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for this time lapse. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at it with some shaders and an awesome render that I did at the end. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.